Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Sunday night hanging, well, right here on Sundays. I'm Ben, and tonight I have my good buddy Jim returning. Excuse me. He's my amp tech virtually and figuratively, and we're going to talk about tubes tonight, folks, and amplifiers and live music and anything else that you feel like talking about. Welcome one, welcome all. If you're new, please subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back.
Hi, everybody.
Eddie Faye, catchy theme song. Did you write and play this? Yes. Yep, that's me. Hey, there's Mr. Anderson 59. He's back in the saddle again. He's back. Excellent. Dave Chase is here. Ferd Burfel, William De Silva, Blackjack Guitar, Symmetry, awesome, and Terry's 333 Gs, perfect. There's Lee, there's Blackjack Guitar again. Who else we got in here? Eddie Faye, yes. Joe, what's up, Joe? Beast Rich 581. Who else do I see? Ben Allmark's in here. Lawrence Cash, Charles 75N. Thank you, Charles, having me on earlier today. It was a bunch of fun talking about signal chains and how we get there. Let's see who else we got there. They're all talking to each other. Sure. Yep. Same people. Yep. Billy Baloney. There's Devin.
Our newly retired Billy Baloney.
Yes. McCollum Music. Lynette. Max Josephson. Driddle. Oh, hey. Herb of Fireside Studio. Unfucking believable. He's got the first question. Patrick Trites. Let's see. He says, I will be late, but question for JP. The full/half power switch on the back of the MT15 doesn't work. No one's does. Why? What mod do I need to get it to work?
I was unaware of that. I've never owned an MT15. Maybe it's one of those things that they just didn't finish in time or that just didn't work well enough. I would assume usually those switches that can switch between half power, what they do is they turn the output pentodes into triodes. They put them in triode mode, so they put out less power.
Okay.
It probably just isn't completed.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I could research that.
Yeah.
Maybe later in the comments after the show, I'll go research that and put an answer for you.
You know, there is a Water Buffalo meeting coming up this Saturday, is what I'm saying. So we may meet up there as well. Maybe.
Hope it goes late. I got early stuff to do.
Well, we'll make a point of it. Usually goes a few hours, I'd say. Yeah. Bo's here.
Back by 2.
Jeff K. Jason Lindholm. Good to see you. D-Max here. My knees hurt. He's assembling enchiladas. And that's awesome because he already assembled a speaker cab earlier today. So, Hip Metalworks is here. Obo Roadie, always a pleasure. What else we got here? DJ Play Nice. Nice. Oh, there's Tom Raines. Good to see you. He says he just bought a Zoom Q8 recorder.
Nice.
Gas station. LRM Guitars. I am buttoned down. Which thoughts and positive vibes to those in Maui.
Wow, that's just horrible.
Yeah. So, Tom Rain says he wants the Friedman Jakey Lee 20, right?
Man, I'd love to own one.
Mm-hmm.
They're $1,700. I just can't justify that.
And I think they're already sold out. If it's a limited run like the last amp, they're already sold out.
Probably.
Billy says his retirement party's Friday night. I hope I wake up in time for the Water Buffalo meeting. We'll save you a spot. Richard Nagamitsu's here. Oh, sorry to hear, Dave. Dave lost 2 friends over there. Wow. Sorry
wow, that's terrible. My condolences.
Mm-hmm.
Things are changing, man.
Yeah.
Whether
it's 102 degrees right now. Don't swing this nonsense.
The climate is changing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at temperature. I'm 70 degrees and 70% humidity. Perfect.
Yeah. That's about what it's been here all week. It's been cooler, but really humid.
Yeah. Lee says he says he has a mini rectifier, kind of covers that ground, but okay.
I wonder why Friedman would make that a limited edition. I mean, it seems if he could get the parts for it, that you'd try to sell as many of those as you could after putting all that R&D.
Mm-hmm. But then again, he only did what? The original, the 100 was only limited to like 50 units.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ultra rare. I can understand that because of how complicated that is to build, but these 20s shouldn't be all that bad.
No.
I mean, that'd be like Pete Thorne putting out 200 amps under his name. That's just not enough.
No, exactly.
But
Tom Rain says the Friedmans aren't sold out. I thought I read that they were. Joe Hervey's asking, why so much money for the Jake? Find me a cheap Friedman amp. There's no such thing.
Yeah, they're all expensive.
Yeah.
They're made in California. I mean, they're going to cost more money when you got real Americans assembling stuff in California.
It's all about labor rates.
Yep.
That's the biggest factor in.
You want to sell it for $800, put it together in Indonesia.
What's up, John DeShane?
I support it. If it would have made sense, I mean, I don't do anything that I should buy an amp like that for. I'd be just sitting off to the side looking pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I rarely play through an amp as it is. I got 10 amplifiers sitting around here that never get used.
I have a bunch that don't get used. I use 2 because I run in stereo. That's it.
I mean, I either play my Randall with the original preamps, like that Agnator design, the RM series, or I use my 60 Fender. And if I need a real portable one, I'll grab my Epiphone, my 66 Epiphone.
Right. Speaking of amplifiers, our friend Charles 75N here in the chat just snagged himself yesterday in trade a PV Classic 30.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that a solid state, or is that still one of the ones they were making on tube?
It's tube.
Okay.
Yeah.
PV was one of those ones I never really did much with.
It sounds Fendery.
Yeah.
Does the thing.
PV made good equipment. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I've listened to it. I just never did much with it, either looking into their designs or, sought one out to play.
Mr. Anderson says, Dave Friedman said on Tone Talk that the Jakey Lee 20 won't be a limited run. Well, sweet. Good.
Yeah. I mean, for a 20-watt amp, that sounds like the sweet spot. And $1,700, I mean, that's affordable for a real player. If you're going to be doing bar gigs, you can afford a $1,700 amp.
Yep. Tom says the Classic 30 is basically a Vox AC30. I don't think so. It doesn't sound very Voxy to me. It sounded way more Fendery to me whenever I played through one. Could be wrong.
EL84s like the Vox?
I didn't think so.
The Vox
I got the Classic 50 back there, and that was their take on a twin, basically. That was my understanding.
What, the AC30?
Jason Douglas in the house. And Tom says 3 12X7s and 4 EL84s.
Yeah, that's very AC30 like. I would have to see the circuit. One of those 12AX7s is probably the phase inverter, and then you got probably one used for preamp and then one used to pick back up after the tone section.
Well, there we are. Yeah, I always bonded with one, and we got Charles into one. Okay, and the Classic 50. See, I figured the 50 is just the 50-watt version, and the 30 is the 30-watt version. If you're calling them both classics, in my opinion.
The 50 is probably using EL34s for output tubes. You only need 2 tubes that way. I had a Blues Junior with EL84s in it. I like the sound of EL84s.
Michael Crow says all the classic stuff was James Brown designed. Yes. That
That could very well be.
Well, I don't know. Mine's from the 70s, so I don't know how long was James Brown with Peavey, because mine's like mid to late 70s. It's got square magnets on the speakers, for God's sakes.
Through the 80s, because he did the Van Halen stuff after Soldano.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be in early 90s when he switched to the PV EVH amps. Is that the time frame?
I think so. John Shane letting us know he's been a member for 22 months. Right on, John.
Nice.
There's Fruitcake Tony. Hey, Fruitcake Tony. If you're interested, Jim here has a Pete Thorne pick.
Well, I had it.
You had a Pete Thorne pick. I believe you were in the market looking for a Pete Thorne pick. And you said, where can a fella find one? Well, a fella found a way for a fella to find one. There you go, PeteThorne.com. Is that the one you were looking for? If so, I can forward you Jim's email. You can figure something out.
I'll give you the bro price on it, $4.99. No, I
That's right. Tony got a new bass. He got himself a Mustang bass. Oh. How do I get one? Well, I'll shoot you Jim's email, and you can figure that out, Tony. Yeah, that's.
I'll trade you for something.
Yeah.
I've got 5 of them, so I'd really be willing to let one go. That's how many he gave us with if you bought, the signed CD and that package when he was doing his second solo album, you got 5 free picks.
Nice.
I don't need 5. I don't even need 4.
Billy Baloney asks, what's the difference between an EL34 and a 5881?
A 5881 is of the 6L6 family rather than the EL family. It's not a British tube. It's not a pentode. It's a beam powered tetrode. It's actually would be considered a 6L6GB. It is the middle iteration of the 6L6s. The tubes we use nowadays are called 6L6GC, which is glass. That's what the G means, and C means it's a C iteration, and it's the most powerful of those. So a 5881 is really just a tone, a step in the family of 6L6s.
You see, Tom's playing the home game here. He's answering alongside. He's playing the home version.
The original 6L6 was a metal tube. That's why it got the G designation. When it was designed, it was designed for amplifiers in the military. And then it got the 6L6G, which was a glass envelope version, and then the GA, which is the next version, which was very short-lived. And they went to the GB, which was even more powerful, and then finally the GC.
Gotcha.
Which is what we call 6L6 these days. I like 5881s. Fender used them in the early 60s. My Fender amp has 5881s in it. 2 beautiful original 1960 tongue saws. Nice.
Tom has some original metal 6L6s for decor.
Yeah. Nice. And those with a slight rebias will work just fine in any amp. It'll actually quiet it down a little bit. They're not they don't have quite the output. But all the other electrical characteristics are just fine. You just got to rebias it a little bit.
Right. William De Silva says, I got a handful of Magnavox 6V6s out of a old stereo, plus a few 12AX7s. Hopefully they're still good.
Yeah. Are those the oval plate ones? The ones that look like Coke bottles, and if you look inside, the plates are like oval shaped.
Philip Aspie asked, so the brown panel Fender used 5881s?
Yeah, the Browns, the early Browns used 5881s.
Okay.
They were originally, Fender never threw anything out. So a lot of them, the tube charts say 6L6s in them, but only
Right.
because he'd already switched to 5881s and wanted to use up the old tube charts. Same thing happened at the back end when he switched away from 5881s to GCs, to 6L6 GCs. He kept the 5881s. I'm fortunate enough to have one that specifies 5881s.
Nice.
And all 7025s for the preamp tubes on the designation too. Speaking of which, 12AX7s.
Yes.
That family of tubes.
Yes.
I hear a lot of misinformation out
The
there.
whole alphabetti of 12s and 7s.
Yeah, they're 9-pin tubes. They're actually 9-pin versions of a lot of the stuff that was designed under 8-pin, the octal tubes.
Okay.
8-pin tubes are much like what you see on a 6L6 and an EL34. That has that plastic base and the big pins. Those are the big ones. And the reason to keep a lot of those power tubes under the octal base is it helps those pins actually help cool the tube. But the 12AX7s don't need the cooling. The plates don't get that hot.
Mm-hmm.
At least they shouldn't. If you're red plating on 12AX7, I don't know how you do it. It takes an awful lot because they're a pretty sturdy tube. Anyway, there are three exact equivalents of 12AX7. There's the 12AX7, there is the 7025, and the ECC83.
Mm-hmm.
They're exactly the same tube. They're just different designations with different numbering systems. The 12AX7 is the American ANSI tube numbering system. The letters mean nothing. They were signed at random. Companies requested them, and they gave them to them. If there was no tube named 6BQ7, and you wanted it, you got a 6BQ7. So 12AX7 came out that way. The 7025 was the military spec version of 12AX7. It uses the military tubes numbering system, which was always 4 digits. The 7025 was built to withstand bumps and stuff. They put them in radios back in World War II, at the end of World War II and into Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a ruggedized tube. The ECC83 is the British equivalent of a 12AX7, and that uses the British numbering system. E stands for 12 volt. C is a triode, so ECC is 12 volt, 2 triodes. 83 was the sequence it was given. That's the only difference between those 3 tubes. Quite often you'll see 7025s have a JAN designation afterwards. JAN stands for Joint Army Navy, which was a military spec tube bought by the military. Okay. So if you get a JAN tube, that tube actually once belonged to the United States government. So 12AU7. Can we talk about that one for a little bit?
Let's talk about the AU7.
There's a lot of disinformation on that. A 12AU7 is not a replacement for a 12AX7, period. It's just not. It's a tube designed for a completely different purpose. It's got a very low gain in it. It requires a lot of voltage on the grid. So a 12AX7 runs on about 1 to 2 volts grid voltage, which is perfect for a guitar signal. A 12AU7 runs on 15 to 20 volts on the grid. That's 5 times as much voltage, 10 times as much voltage. You're never going to be able to overdrive a 12AU7. Sometimes you're going to have a hard enough time driving it with a guitar signal. So it's a terrible choice to put in your first stage. It's also a high current tube. A 12AX7 delivers about 0.05 of an amp, 0.005 of an amp, about a half a milliamp. A 12AU7 delivers 20 milliamps, 40 times the amount of current. Now, depending on how your amp was designed, that stage might not be able to take that much current because it's going to conduct it whether you want it to or not. So it's a terrible choice to put in an amp stage designed for a 12AX7. Where it is useful is stuff like phase inverters, which the power tubes in an amp are a fairly heavy load to drive, and a 12AX7 has a hard time doing so. So a 12AU7 is a good replacement in that design. If you design it for a 12AU7, it can supply the current that can drive at the output tubes. 12AX7 has a more difficult time, and they actually have to go out of their way to make that happen by biasing the tubes differently. So those are the two that are not generally interchangeable.
Right.
Now, there's a few other versions. There's the 12AY7, which is pretty much just a low-gain version of 12AX7. It's electrically similar. Let me see what the driving voltage is on that. I think
a few people mentioned the AT7s as well. They like.
Right. The 12AT7's even closer, but less gain. The 12AY7 needs 8 volts on the grid, so it needs about 4 times as much voltage. So it's not a direct replacement, but it's a lot closer than a 12AU7. And it's the amount of current it supplies isn't as much as a 12AU. It's a little more than a 12AX. They built them for different purposes. It is a preamp tube meant for audio. It's just used in different methods. It's a great tube to drive a tone stack. Tone stacks are really heavy, present really heavy loads, and they're a very current hungry part of the amp. A 1218 and a 12AY are good choices to drive those. So therein lies the fundamental difference. Now there's one other tube in this family that you probably have heard of that we probably should mention, and that's the 5751. 4 digits, mil-spec tube. It was originally designed for use by the Air Force. It's a tube that was designed for airplane radios. It's built ruggedized to withstand the rigors of flight and high altitude. So that's what it was designed for. It's slightly lower gain. Instead of having 100 amplification factor like a 12AX7 does, a 5751 has a 70 amplification factor. But other than that, it's pretty much the same kind of tube. It needs about the same grid voltage, supplies the same current. If you design for it, it works just about the same. So that is an excellent tube if you want to calm down spitting Marshall that's a little bit fizzy. Right. Because the first stage is putting too much out. 5751 is an excellent tube choice there. The biggest problem is they haven't made them in 50 years, and they're really hard to find original tubes.
There is that. Bo was asking, what's that synth behind you, Jim?
Right there?
Yeah.
That's a Behringer 2600.
Ah.
This is a Behringer DeepMind 12. There's a couple other ones directly behind me. On the right here, that's a Hydrasynth.
Oh, there we are.
One of those things I started dabbling in during COVID.
Apparently, Tom's bragging he has a box of 5751s. Really, Tom?
You can still get 5751s being made today, but they're really just tubes that didn't quite have enough oomph to them to get a 12AX7 designation. That's what they're doing. They're actually
way back in high school. I used to go tube hunting every weekend. He says he has a lifetime supply. All right.
Right now, last I checked on eBay, a new old stock 5751 is going for about $40 a piece.
And worth it.
Yeah, I
bought $40 fix.
I bought 3 or 4 back 15 years ago to put in my tube stash.
Now, BC Rich, who's a bass player, loves a solid state. He's like, man, I feel like an 8-year-old listening to this talk.
So I just wanted to clarify a little bit about the 12A series tubes, because there's a lot of misunderstanding of what does what and why. And unless you've been taught to read a tube chart, those aren't the most simple thing in the world to get your head around. Right. By the way, all those tube charts are out there if you want them. There's a website called frank.poc.net, and it has every tube chart for both American and British and Chinese, every tube chart you can ever imagine. And if you're going to actually design an amp, you really need those ones with all the grid voltages and all that, so that you can draw load charts.
By the way, hello to Absolute Mayhem. I saw him sneak in here.
Welcome.
Michael Crow says, I think back to all those tubes we tossed back in the 80s at the TV repair shop and weep.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But most tubes you see nowadays being sold on eBay that are new old stock are, yes, new old stock, but they're also rejects. They're ones that don't pass muster. They're junk. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to, unless somebody's willing to stand behind it and say, yes, this is new old stock, here's the measurement, and show you the measurement, and they'll refund your money, don't buy them. Don't pay any extra. Just go buy Chinese tubes. They're just as good.
What's up, Randy Upchurch? Lynette says, RCA tube manual got the schematics right there.
Yep. That's where Leo Fender got them. Mm-hmm. He just looked in the RCA and who was it that designed all that? Westinghouse or Western Electric. That's it. Who did all the designs? He just copied that.
What's up, Cushman? Bonkers? Christopher Vella? What's going on, my friend?
Just because a tube wasn't designed to be used in an amplifier doesn't mean it can't be. I mean, there's a lot of great power pentodes out there that were designed for driving television sets that could easily be adapted. The hard part is knowing how to have it design the output transformer.
And we have a history of misusing gear. Like, for instance, I don't recall ever hearing jazz on a Jazzmaster, but I've heard a bunch of other genres of music played on a Jazzmaster. Just saying. And I saw my niece heard ask, has anyone ever dropped hot solder on the paper of a speaker cone? No, I have not.
Asking for a friend?
Right? Not that he was wiring up the speaker cab earlier today.
Yeah. No, because I get everything hot enough that the solder flows. Soldering's an art, isn't it, Ben?
Oh, it is. It is. Marcia Murray says, I hate jazz, but love jazz masters. There you are. Herb says, remind me not to play Trivial Pursuit, the amp edition with Jim.
Well, I spent 10 years teaching myself amplifying and tubes and how to do all this stuff because I was interested. When I bought my first tube amp, I thought, these are pretty cool. I'll bet they're expensive to fix. And I was right. So I learned to fix them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was like Pete was mentioning on his show today about something about like adding a master volume to an amp. You know, like use one of the speaker outputs on the back of the chassis and just put a master volume. You know, easy. You done? I'm like, yeah, if you live in LA and know people that can do that shit, like most of us don't live anywhere near a competent amp tech. You know, it's like,
and you know. It's not that hard to do, provided you know where to put it, what values to use, and why, and what effect it'll have.
I suppose I'm thinking I'm just going to electrocute myself trying to put a master volume into an amp.
Yeah, there's only 500 volts in a Fender amp. What could go wrong?
Yeah. Exactly. What could go wrong?
I have a big old resistor with 2 clips on it to drain caps with. Those are real fun when you forget to take them off and plug it back in.
I bet.
I've done it a couple of times.
Let's see. My niece says wiring right now. I got the paper covered with more paper, cardboard. Perfect.
There you go.
Yep.
Are you going to ask us what happens when you put your soldering iron through a speaker cone next?
Right. He says lots of things are easy when you know how to do them. Well, yeah. Right.
Well, like I said,
DMAX says you can add a GHS black box in the effects loop to add a master volume. Yeah, but I'm thinking if the amp doesn't have a master volume, chances are it doesn't have an effects loop either.
Yeah. You know what the best way to add a master volume to that is? An aux box.
Right.
Get yourself one of those other, the impedance boxes that have the amp built into it by what's his name, the guy who did who built those things that works with Soldano and with Friedman.
Oh, boutique amps.
Yeah, it's a boutique amp product, but forget who the guy was that built those. He built a lot of amps himself. Had an amp company. Forget the name.
Refrigerator?
No.
No. All right. Huh. Fryette?
Fryette, yes. Fryette.
Right. You see Fryette in the chat there.
Yes, Fryette.
What's up, Josh? Josh is late. Well, you still beat Doug Strong, Josh. So, on the Kid Brigade. So,
did Doug Strong ever get that pedal?
I don't remember now. I know he got a Soldano 412 cab, and I'm proud of the boy. He flipped it like a week and a half later for profit.
There you go.
Yeah. Which is not easy to do in today's marketplace, actually flipping a 412 cab. Usually it's tag, you're it.
Yeah, nobody wants them.
Yep.
Most of the, I laugh. In the local Jppagetoo you guys have there, we have something similar here called Craigslist, and you go shopping and people have these 4x12s and they want $375, but you have to pick it up. It's like, you're out of your mind.
Right. I was thinking about offering, because I wouldn't mind getting rid of my half stack because it's solid state, 4 ohm. I'm not using it. And I'll just be $400 delivered within 3 hours of here.
Yeah, I'll go as far as Toronto.
Yep.
Yeah, nobody wants those big things anymore. They're fine for if you have a basement jam room where you can set them up on a permanent basis. Nobody wants to schlep those things around.
No, and I only had it because, the kind of had that look too. We're a metal band. You got to have a half stack on stage.
Yeah, well, you had Mark too.
Yeah, and we had Mark, and I'm like, can we not book places with stairs? That's what I asked.
For sure.
Man, and I'm sure it's the same in Michigan. How many small towns where it's street level at the front? Oh yeah, load in the back, but there's a slight gradient, so really the load in's up a commercial flight of stairs into the back entrance.
And of course, the singer can't lift a finger.
Oh no! Oh, I have my microphone. I'm like, I
don't want to hurt
you don't need a PA. I got a half stack. I don't need a PA. So, who needs a PA? Oh yeah. Only bars with escalators. Exactly, BC. Right? See, I have 2 half stacks, and someone else always brings the stuff in. Nice.
Yeah, lead singer's disease for sure.
Yep.
Lead singers don't lift a finger.
Charles says 412s are great for giving your eye candy a place to sit. Yep, I said it. Well, the other nice thing about half stack, Charles, is it's roughly a cold snack height. As long as you don't mind vibrating a cold snack off the head if you're really giving her. I'm just saying. Not that I've done that. I've done that. Where's my drink? Oh, it's on the floor behind the amp. Great.
Next one's going to cost me money.
Yeah. Dang it.
I only get one free one.
Murray says maybe I should learn to sing.
Not a bad idea. The gear.
Yeah, I was big on that. Like that was a big thing. Like if you could sing, because I'd like to have all band members be able to sing. Yeah, it just adds. It was one thing. If I learn one thing from Kiss, have all band members sing.
At least be able to sing backup vocals.
Yeah, it's just so much fuller.
I can sing fairly well. I was in choir most of school. Problem is my vocal range is in the bass range, so I can't sing rock and roll. I can sing backup just fine in 4-part harmony.
Okay. Bo, you must have stepped away. He says, so Jim, what's the sense behind you there? We answered that about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's a Behringer remake of the ARP 2600.
Yes.
They're absolutely fantastic. If you ever wanted to have an ARP, you can buy one of these for $600 and they sound great and they work great. They're awesome. I've always wanted a 2600, and when they came out with these, I snapped one up immediately. Also, right underneath it, right there is a Behringer Neutron as well.
Nice.
So there's a few more up here.
Philip Aspie says 5 guys in our band, all 5 sing. Agree completely with this assessment. Thank you, Philip. And my niece says, I love the Peter Criss songs he sings. Me too. And the Ace Frehley songs. I like the Ace songs.
Yeah, if you noticed at the beginning, Kiss, it was all Paul and Gene, and it was on by the 3rd album they started making the others sing, and then they all got big heads and made an album themselves.
Yep. Bo says, stop it, I'm trying to build a studio. Well, Bo, you think tonight's bad for gas? Wait till next week when we have Michael Torin on with one of, which I understanding has one of the premier amplifier and rack gear collections out there. So we'll be doing a lot of shopping for you, Bo. And if you're still looking for a mixing board, Bo, I was thinking, how about a Fostex board? Be a lot cheaper than a Neve. I was going to say.
Yeah, really. Probably more common too.
Yeah, he priced out a Neve board, and like what they're going for these days, it's
modern Neves aren't. Rupert Neve didn't have anything to do with them by the end. He formed his own Rupert Neve Designs, and Neve was owned by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And those Rupert Neve Design preamps, he had that and the compressor together, and they were like $2,000, $4,000. It was ridiculous money.
Yeah, you don't really actually in today's world too with virtual. Like if you're doing a DAW, there's your board anyways. You don't really need a mixing console per se. You just need a preamp strip to plug into.
That's very true. Nowadays, if I don't know if you follow Warren Hewart's channel, but mixing in the box, they call it, is pretty common nowadays. That's why I kind of scratched my head when he spent all that money on that new mixing board.
Yeah, like boards are nice and the tactileness of it, but really, you just need a rack gear, rack preamps. They'll do it fine. And that's your interface or into your interface, and the M Audio one I did was basically a Neve strip. Anyways, it sounded great. Pedals directly into a virtual amp. You can't tell. My latest recording, because I can usually tell when it sounds digital. Yeah, I'll say the stuff I did on the first recording kind of sounds a little digital to me, but the last one sounded much better. Sub 7/8 says, I mix in the box. I've heard of that about you.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you can save off a session and come back to it a year later and remix it if you want. And DAWs these days, I mean, if you buy the, Pro Tools and all those Apple's DAW, all those expensive ones, yeah, you
Right.
can spend a lot of money, but Reaper's only $60.
Mm-hmm.
I use Reaper, and it's a fantastic DAW.
Yep.
It does everything Pro Tools does and more.
Currently don't have a DAW of any kind because I leave that to Buddy at the studio, and I don't even know what he uses. He just brings it up. I'm like, whatever. You just click the buttons, and
Well,
when I hear the click in,
I have all these hardware synthesizers, but if you have a DAW, I mean, every synthesizer ever made practically is available as a VST.
right?
And some of them are amazing. Like Cherry
Yeah.
Audio just did the Yamaha GX1 and CS80 as a combined VST, and it's amazing.
I remember Stephen Boston talking about that because he picked up a new, just a MIDI keyboard essentially.
Yeah,
to interface with his computer. Yeah.
I also have one right here.
Nice. Let's. Randy Price says, "Hit up Jay for your digital drum needs. He can even make Lars' drums sound real." Well, that's impressive.
Oh yeah, I mean, if Pete talks about using his drum program. I have the same drum program. It's fantastic, and you can I'm a terrible drummer. I can't get my feet and my hands to work together for all the tea in China, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
All those beats are available. You can buy all kinds of MIDI tracks that manipulate those drums, all kinds of drum sets. It's cool.
Yeah, I can't remember what the drum software he uses, but literally I just played a riff in and it figured out the beats per minute, and then we just found a groove that worked, a drum beat that worked. There's Doug Strong. Doug, did you buy that pedal? I can't remember. Is up, Zach? Bo also reports in. I was looking at Digico as well. Seems more likely than the Neve. Check into Fostex. I do have several boards now, mostly Mackie 8-bus, Yamaha, and Personas. Yeah, you can always just use one of those too.
Yeah, those sound more like live boards, though.
Yeah, but how much difference is it between a live board and a mixing board?
Usually, it's the number of channels.
Yeah,
and how they bust things out as well.
Okay. I don't know. I got a 24 channel board sitting there. It would be collecting dust if I didn't have a dust cover on it. Superior 3 is the best, Jay says. No, I think that's what I might have been using. Superior Drummer 3.
I think I have Easy Drummer.
It might have been Easy Drummer. I don't know. Yeah, it had drummer in the name.
The thing that's nice about Superior Drummer is you can use your own drum samples. You can't do that in Easy Drummer.
Okay, Doug says he did get a pedal in trade, but I'm not sure if that counts.
I'll make it count.
McCall Music says live boards have channel effects. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really used boards with any kind of effects. It was always like, hey, can you add some more reverb on my voice? I'm like, sure. Phantomly not turn a knob because I don't have reverb in my board.
Yeah, and studio boards usually have compressors built into those channels as well.
Okay.
I'm not saying that live boards don't, but compressors aren't generally used as much in the live as they are in studio.
Interesting.
I've never figured out how to use a compressor except on a bass, I
don't know. Well, I'd like to think I do because I now have a compressor I like, but I think that's the compressor more than me figuring it out. It's just that good. You just plug it in and it does no wrong. Michael Crow says the new digital boards have all that stuff built in. Yeah, well, they got them now where you hook up with your iPad and you can walk around and set levels remotely.
Yeah, everything is touch boards and there's no moving parts on them anymore. A friend of mine does sound and lights for Humphreys McGee, and I sat at their soundboard and watched them one time, and it was amazing what the technology they have. And they're only like this mid-tier band. if you know who Humphreys McGee is.
Philip says, I mean, if you got enough gain through the amp, a compressor seems redundant. No, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
I enjoyed using that in my last record because it kept my dynamics in check. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's why they use them for bass.
Yeah. It could tighten things up.
Yeah. It's a form of distortion if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if you actually put a lot of compression on something, it acts just like a distortion, even to the point of brick walling, causing clipping. It's just how it is.
Michael Chris says the iPad thing is great when you're in the crowd and it says connection lost. I haven't messed with a EQ pedal really, Joe. A little bit. Back in the day, I had one, but I didn't know how to use it. I don't know how to use it.
Want to know the secret of all these different guitar sims and everything, the Helix and all that? You know what they are? They're a giant EQ pedal.
Yep.
That's all they are. They match the output of various amps by adjusting EQ. That's how important EQ is. That's all they are. All those amp sims are just giant. If you look at, for example, with a Kemper, you know how you make a Kemper model? They play a frequency starting very low all the way up to the very highest frequencies and go back down, and they see how your amp reacts to those frequencies, and it duplicates the EQ curve. That's all it's doing.
Huh.
So EQ pedal, yeah, that's pretty important. Get a lot done with it.
Great. Let's see. BC Rich says parametric equalization actually works better to get a solid level across the range of an electric bass.
Probably.
Word for it.
The problem with parametric EQ, nobody understands it. They don't know how to move the Q frequencies to be where they want them.
That's
People
me.
like easy 10-band EQ, they can figure out. Hey, I'll make a smiley face. How do I do that on a parametric?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Bo says he's also looking at a Gretsch 5655 TQM. Sounds like with a trem. So a Bigsby and a quilted maple. All right. It's a new model. I will never complain about you buying a Gretsch, Bo.
How many guitars do you own, Bo?
A lot.
Approximately.
He's got to be pushing 100 at this point. I'm gonna say I've known him for about 6 years. And I would say he was still getting about 10 a year since I've known him,
Yeah, my thumb is getting so bad anymore that I'm not buying any more guitars, and I'm thinking of letting some go.
I've decided I demoed the baritone. That was enough of that. I'm not getting a baritone. I don't think. Too hard to play. Electric 12. I've wanted one for years. Nope, not going to happen. I just don't have the hand strength anymore.
Yeah, I've started developing really bad arthritis in my left thumb about 5 years ago, and it's starting in my right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect in another 5 years that playing guitar is going to be an easy thing. That's why I took up.
Reports in. He says 120, I think, plus or minus 5.
Wow,
that wasn't that far off.
It's a good gig if you can get it.
No kidding. What's up, Cecil?
I have nothing against people who collect guitars. Nothing whatsoever. If I had money, I'd buy guitars just because I like them, not because I played them.
Herb says, I'm pulling the trigger on a new guitar tomorrow. Care to guess what it'll be? A Kramer. Which one?
Dan Electro.
Kramer Striker. What's up, Laz? Brandy Price says Bukovac did a really good demonstration on how important his EQ pedal is and completely different tones he could get on the fly. Yeah, I was watching his rig rundown and him just goosing certain frequencies and using it basically, Boss EQ as a boost essentially.
And he got that from Brett Mason. Brett Mason had one on his board a long time ago, and he still has one today. And
it's like using the 1K or something. I forget what it was. Or killing the 1K. One of the other. Bumblebee Yellow Beretta. Well, there we are, Herb.
Nice. New one or old one?
If you take up jogging, take it with you. Works like a reflective sign.
A new one or an old one?
Good question. New or old? Vintage Beretta or new Beretta? And I just who said Hondo 2? Billy? No, nobody should have a Hondo 2.
I have a Greco.
There we are. Herb says new. Okay.
New.
So new Beretta.
I have an old Kramer. It's Farrington. KFS 2 with the shark fin inlays.
Mm-hmm.
They're very rare.
Yep.
The KFS 1 with F meeting the strat shape. The KFS 1 has dot inlays, and they're a little more common, but they're still rare. Right. Then there's the Telly shape. And there were a very, very few flying V shape ones made.
And I believe an Explorer shape, too.
Yes. Yes. The only reason anybody cared about him is because Eddie promoted him at one point.
Yeah.
He was seen in an advertisement.
I remember I wanted one to piss off my dad because I thought if I have an Explorer-shaped acoustic, he will lose his shit.
I like mine.
Sounds like ass. Well, it doesn't sound like your Martin, but it sounds. My former rebellion.
I like my Kramer. It's actually a really good sounding and well playing acoustic guitar. It's got a piezo pickup in it, but it's a terrible piezo pickup. It's really cracky. I never use it. I'd rather like it.
When I was a kid, I had a Hondo Flying V so cheap some of the frets were hammered and crooked.
Oh, jeez.
No doubt.
Hard to play in tune.
Yeah. Nice.
What pedal did you get in trade, Doug?
Yeah, Doug. What pedal did you get in trade? I don't remember.
Come on. We're talking gear here.
Yep. It's what we're here for.
We're enablers.
I have some gear on the way that I can't talk about for another month exactly. Come back on September the 13th instead of August the 13th and ask me. Then I can talk about it. But until then, I can't talk. Well, I can talk about one of the things then. The other thing, I don't know if and when I can ever talk about it. I will know at some point. Doug says he got a Mobius. Ooh.
Oh, nice. Those are good.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta love Strymon. Isn't that a power pedal?
Yeah, Doug doesn't usually get a lot of garbage, that's for sure. Doug gets some nice stuff. He hums and haws, bitches and moans for 6 months, but he always ends up with something nice.
If it's a Strymon, it definitely counts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Michael Crow says, did I brag about my free guitar already? What free guitar? What? McCullough Music says, I've been eyeing a Kramer Night Swan. You will not go wrong with a Kramer Night Swan. They are nice.
Ooh, those are pricey.
Yep.
I wish Kramer would go back and start making all those crazy graphics finishes like they used to.
Right.
You know? And I think if Gibson wanted to reestablish Kramer as a brand, that's the direction they should go, because if they're just going to make the same old red and blue, what's the difference between that and a Fender or any other?
Yeah, like you have, like it's always been like Jacksons, Charvels, and Kramers in that sense. Like, and I'll even throw in like LTD ESPs in there. You know, like, all right, set yourself apart. right?
Yeah, tiger skins and zebra stripes.
Like Charvel does the crackle finish, which is cool because they'll do it up and down the whole guitar neck headstock. They don't care. Do something.
Yeah,
they got a few, but they're really basic, like really basic. And I don't want to call it graphics per se.
That was always the cool thing about Kramer, Brazilian flag and, all kinds of cool stuff that they always had.
And a lot of those were one-offs.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's for artists, basically. But that's what made put Kramer on the map, and then everybody had to have one. Let's face it, Kramer's didn't sound all that great.
But they look cool as hell.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's
up, the voice of Cornhole, legend himself. What's up, Donnie? He says, I need a flying V. Yeah, you do. Doug says, okay, I admit it's an acquisition. We'll figure something out. Yep, you will. He says, the Mobius did cost me a whole 150 Canadian. Oh, come on. That's a wicked deal.
That means you have to have enough left over to owe me the 20 for buying the pedal.
Yep. Yeah, Billy says Kramer just released a bunch of really corny graphic guitars. Well, it's like they dipped their toe, but they didn't go all in. And then someone else, mentioned the Badlands guitar. Like they did the hollow flash there, and that sold out in a few days, which should tell you right there.
That's what people want.
That's what people want. Exactly.
I don't need another blue Pacer. Who cares about that? Give me graphics. That's Kramer.
I have coming up soon a slime green Charvel I demoed with a white pickguard. So, I don't like pickguards on Charvels. Pickguards are for fenders. We'll leave the pickguards to fenders. Other stuff, everything should be just blank with just, direct mount pickups, control cavity from behind, separate key Compton.
Never had that, did they?
Yeah. My niece says, what is that single neck pickup in the new Badlands guitar? It's a custom pickup for that guitar. The guy who makes the Badlands pickups makes just pickups for Badlands. That's apparently all he does in life. And he wired them so when you go in the middle position, it's an overwound single coil, so it'll compete nicely or complement nicely with the humbucker in the bridge position. And then they got one of those fancy fender pots, so the single can see 250, the humbucker can see 500, so everything's happy. But you can only get those pots through Fender. So our friend Ike at Flipside Music mysteriously made an order from Fender, Jim, for 200 pots.
Hey, man. Long as they don't bust him for it.
Yeah. Phil is not making pickups, my knees hurt.
I work for an office furniture company, and it's really common for us to get a phone call from another furniture manufacturer wanting to order a whole office suite from one of our other manufacturers.
Sure.
They order them in, set them up, and see what makes them tick.
Mm-hmm.
They all do it, so it's not some big industry secret or anything, but it is kind of funny.
Yep.
Hi, this is Noel. I'd like to order 2 workstations of all steel, please. Okay.
Ricky Compton says some of the ESP Mirages from the late 80s and 90s had some killer graphics. Yep.
They still do. Doesn't Kirk Hammett do a lot with the ESP and the cool graphics, like his scary movie stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And his Ouija board one?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Anderson 59 says, just installed my first set of Fralin pickups this morning. They sound great in my 80s made in Japan Strat. Nice.
I bet.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a nice pickguard fully stocked with lace sensors from an original Strat. Forget, there was a late 90s Strat that came originally with golds in it.
Nice.
It's nice, yeah.
Josh just says, pickguards on Gretches too, with exclamation. Well, yeah, Gretches and Gibsons as well. Yes. Your traditional guitars get pickguards. The modern ones, they don't. Like, you're going to do bright paint, just don't have a pickguard. What's up, Michael B. Live?
Who's in charge of Gibson's Kramer line? Is Sanjay doing that?
Well, that's Aljon Go.
Aljon, I meant, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he does the Epiphone, Kramer, and Steinberger.
Has anybody told him that the graphics are the deal? Or
It's been acknowledged to him, I will say. But if and when we agree on a date for him to come on, it will definitely be mentioned that night.
Well, that'd be great.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just Gibson has a brand that they could really market something different than, you know, they can get away with all these robot tuners and all this stuff on Kramer, but they aren't going to get away with it on Epiphone and Gibson. It just won't happen.
No, exactly. Now, I do like it when they do the side by side, a traditional and a modern Les Paul. Like, if you want the adjustable titanium nut, which I really like, get it, you know. My niece are, get Aljon on. Well, yeah, it's not that easy to get the head of a company on knees. We need more subscribers. We need to get the base up, is what I'm saying. More likely to appear on a larger channel, I'm saying, folks. So tell your friends. Tell your enemies. I don't care. Just tell them.
Yeah, thumbs down is good as a thumbs up.
Yep. Don't care. Sean Zimmerman in the house. Good to see you, my friend.
Why did the president of Gibson quit? I never,
I don't think he really had a choice.
Oh, okay.
It was, you either quit or either way, you're packing your desk. So what do you want optically? And I don't know if that's like his contract was up and it was not going to be renewed, or I don't know.
I mean, he seemed like he kind of had his act together more than the previous guy did.
Yeah, the only thing was kind of the Mark Ignacy,
I still don't get that, but
yeah.
Although I liked his collections thing they just posted. Did you watch that?
The Jason Isbell one? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where it does come well, because he is, I will say Mark Ignacy is very knowledgeable in that collector market. And so, and it's just like the offhanded comment, like one of Jason's first guitars was the 335. He's like, yeah, I got it from Bukovac. He's like, hasn't he owned every 335 in Nashville at one time or another?
Do you follow Bukovac's channel?
I do.
Chorus, Echo.
Yep.
I was there right from like his second post. I followed him all the time.
I would have followed him earlier if I realized it was Tom, because I'm like, wow, this guy. I'm like, because he doesn't introduce himself ever. No. You just got to know. And then I remember it was literally years ago. I'm like, wow, this guy gets into the cool place. It was like walking into Freyland's one day or something. I'm like, who can just shoot it? Video at Lindy Freyland's shop, but he walks in like he owns the place. I'm like, oh, it's Bukovac. Okay. I don't know.
I mean, just when he comes on, he's starting to play the guitar and then goes click, turns it off, and he's done. It's like, wow, that was mind blowing again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do enjoy it.
I can't play the chords he plays. No way. I mean, you look at the chords he's playing. He's playing 15 levels above anything I could ever play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's played with just about everybody over the years as far as genres go.
He's just mega talented and put in all the work and effort to become that. You don't get that good on talent alone.
Yeah.
He has talent.
He's been at it a long time.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But he put in the hours and the effort to become what he is, man. He's amazing.
Now, Billy, are you proud that he's from Ohio? I saw Billy says, I'm ashamed that Ignacie's from Ohio. So I'll say, are you proud that Book's from Ohio? I want to say he's a Cleveland boy at that.
Yes,
Cleveland area.
Yeah, I admire his playing. Everything he plays, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah. I disagree with him on some stuff involving pedals, but he's probably hearing things I don't hear.
Yeah.
Because I know there's stuff I don't hear that other people hear. Billy Baloney says, I can't believe I never caught Uncle Larry when he was playing around here. Yeah, but I was going to say...
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, he left
70s?
early. Yeah, I don't think he really gigged a whole lot around there outside of like while he was still in school type thing, gigging.
I don't know how old is he. How old is he? In mid-50s? Early 50s?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm going to say 53 to 55.
You know.
And he's not bitter about his divorce at all.
Not at all. He didn't, I got it. For as painful as he claims it was, he certainly didn't talk much about it during the time it was going on.
Nope.
I
don't think he was allowed to, because he certainly talked about it like a couple years later. Look at it, he's like, wow. Yeah.
Well, I always thought it was weird. He was in his garage, for one thing, and his wife only joined him like 1 or 2 times, and she barely said a word to him.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's an odd arrangement. Okay, I guess. Whatever. So
he's 54.
They must have sold
to
house.
Nashville in 92. Well, there we go.
92? Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's 30 years ago.
So if he went to college, he would have moved there like right out of college. More or less.
Yeah, so he'd be born 68, 70, somewhere around in there.
69.
69? 68?
Because I'm 49, so I'm just going to go with that. Let's see. Ryan Hall says, made it to Alabama. Nice.
Yeah, glad you had a safe trip.
Yep. Billy says he did gig around here for quite a while. He was in a Genesis tribute band. Of course he was.
Of course he was.
Yeah, sure. I noticed Robert Baker's made fast friends with him. Now that he's living in Nashville. He already got that Firebird from
if Robert wants to work in the industry, you can't meet somebody who's got more connections than Book.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
That's how it works. You just got to find somebody who knows somebody who's willing to give you a shot.
Yep. Yeah, especially I see. Yeah, Baker would want to do studio work. Like he obviously isn't going to want to tour at all.
Yeah, see, that's the real problem. That there just isn't enough studio work to keep him and Brett Mason and all the other studio pros busy without going on the road. He even went on the road for a while.
Mm-hmm.
With Ann Wilson.
Yep.
Even doesn't Dan Huff play out too? I think Dan Huff plays out.
Yep. At least locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's that whole kind of they're trying to keep the East Nashville thing, keeping it greasy and sleazy, but gentrification saying otherwise. Good luck with that.
Yeah, there's too many people that moved into Nashville. You can't keep that a secret for very long. It's kind of like or Memphis down there, the blues, whatever the name of that street is.
Beale Street.
What it is.
I agree.
It's going to be all commercialified. You're going to have the BB King style places.
Oh yeah, that was like
big time.
Like even when I hit Nashville in 2019, I've seen a change between then and now. Even then, it was other outside of Tootsie's and Ernest Tubbs Record Shop. The rest of Broadway was all corporate, and even then, Ernest Tubbs is shut down now. So, and I'm sure
Tootsie's still open when I was last year.
This happens to be the same name,
Well, the last time I was there, Groons was still on downtown.
Well, yeah, they've. I can't remember. I drove by them, but it wasn't like right on the main drag. It was nearby.
Right there on the corner. That's where I got to play my first 55 Les Paul.
Terry says, I think Baker is too much of a shredder guy to be relevant in Nashville. No, I wouldn't say that at all. There's been lots of shredders for the last 20 years in Nashville.
everybody's moved to Nashville because
Yeah,
LA.
yeah. Like you say, Dan Huff. Dan Huff is 80s shred. You know.
Yeah, country shred, so to speak.
Yeah.
But no, all the rock artists are moving to Nashville because it's
It have been for years.
more
Yeah,
affordable.
like I'm saying, yeah, for a year. Like Frampton's lived there better part of a decade. You know, Vince Neil lives there. You know, a lot of the gated communities and stuff. Yeah, because it's cheaper than, and it's central for fly in every weekend because all these guys fly
Even
in
Bonamassa has a place there.
Exactly. Billy Sheehan lives in Nashville. Yep.
Yep, he sure does.
For a while.
Man, I saw Winery Dogs back in March. They are.
Plus, yeah, I will say, like, and Billy says these modern pop country bands that need a rock guitar. I remember, flipping around the radio station, literally looking for cover tunes for my metal band to play. And one day to live, we played a certain amount, and I was like, oh, here's a song. You know, it's kind of southern rock feel. You know, it's heavy. So I do the Shazam thing on my phone to see who it is. It's Eric Church. I'm like, he's supposed to be a country guy because I know Cousin Doug's a fan. I was like, I'm listening to Les Pauls and the Marshalls. How is that country? You know,
what wasn't it kind of like Brooks and Dunn that started all that?
Yeah.
Brooks and Dunn started with the cowboy boots and Les Pauls.
Yep.
A friend of mine who still lives in Nashville used to be a nanny for Ronnie Dunn.
What's up, one? Bo says Robert Baker is a good guitarist. He reminds me of me when I was 20. Oh, see what you did there.
Had more hair.
Has anyone seen Carrie Underwood doing Ace of Spades? I have not, Billy. I have not.
Oh man, that'd be cool.
That would be interesting.
I did catch Motorhead before they were done. That was awesome. I saw him with Testament opened, then it was Motorhead, Heaven and Hell, and then Judas Priest.
That's a lot. That's a big show.
That was with still the original, all the original Judas Priest that was around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Different drummer, obviously, but both Downing and Glenn were playing guitar.
My niece says I don't listen to country. Nothing that anyone considers country today, anyways. Real country I listen to. Well, it makes it. You're a fiddle player. There's no real. Well, there's some, but not much. Yeah.
I saw Rodney Atkins 2 weeks ago. He was at that music thing I was working at, and he had a guitar player who had a Les Paul, and he had one of those electric fiddles. It was a rock show with country lyrics.
My niece says I own a fiddle, not so much of a player. Better than me, dude. Better than me. I've seen the jams with your family. You got Pops on the guitar, Mom on the piano, and you're on the fiddle. What's up, Mark Taft?
I tried playing violin when I was a kid. I hated it. It poisoned my parents. Never let me try another musical instrument. I had to buy my own
has
guitar.
A question. Let's see here. Okay, I know this is weird or maybe sacrilegious question in the music community, but I'm way curious. When it comes to the Eagles, what song is superior between the two? Hotel California or Journey of the Sorcerer? I'm not familiar with Journey of the Sorcerer.
That's from their from one of these, from one of the early albums, Desperado or one of those. That was the one with the banjo and the no vocals, no lyrics. It was
okay. Probably heard it then.
I don't know. Hotel California is a pretty hard song to beat.
For me, it's Life in the Fast Lane.
I've heard it a bazillion times. It's a damn good song.
Yeah. I'll just go with Life in the Fast Lane. That's the only Eagles song I really care for anymore. Because I like Joe Walsh. I'm the Dennis Leary thing. They sucked before they had him. They sucked after they had him. But that's me. I'm not a Don Henley fan at all.
I think they wrote some great songs.
They did do that. Yeah, I will say.
You know,
I like Henley's early solo stuff. The Boys of Summer could just take a flying leap as far as I'm concerned, but he didn't write that either. That was Mike Campbell.
Don Henley and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
But Dirty Laundry, I like it. But you got Joe Walsh playing guitar.
You know, when it came to the Eagles, at least live, I like improvisationally based music. Whether it's completely improv or somewhat improv, like a Zeppelin, where they had a song structure that they branched out from. I like improvisation in my music, and that ain't the Eagles. No. You can set your watch by an Eagles concert.
Yep. All right, so my niece heard Smuggler's Blues. Well, that was from Glenn Frey's solo record and used prominently in an episode of Miami Vice that he was also in as a smuggler pilot. So that's right.
I'm sorry. Out of the whole
bunch, Joe Walsh is the only redeeming quality of the Eagles. Yep. Because Glenn Frey, rest his soul, much like Paul Stanley, is a yes man for the ego in the band.
Yep.
Yes, Herb. That's Mike Campbell is the guitar player for Tom Petty. Mike Campbell.
Yes.
He's still out there touring.
Yes, and he played on Don Henley's first 2 solo albums.
Yep.
Wrote some of the songs.
Yep.
He wrote Boys of Summer.
Mm-hmm.
Which ticked Tom off to no end. He had given that song to Tom, and Tom couldn't come up with lyrics for it and turned it down, and he gave it to Don Henley and turned it into a #1 hit.
It kind of makes sense. Because you have to, like, that song has a certain production level, that whole David Foster 80s overproduced thing, but you have to do that for Don Henley. Whereas the Heartbreakers were still the Heartbreakers, until, Jeff Lynne got involved, and he just made the Heartbreakers sound like the Beatles.
Yeah.
But that's a solo album. That was Tom Petty's solo album. Wasn't it a Heartbreakers album? No. But you recorded it here, and we're all playing on it. Doesn't matter. It's a solo album. Okay, Tom.
But the very next album, Into the Great Wide Open, was done the same way, and it's a Heartbreakers album.
Yep.
I think what ticked Tom off so much was he was working on another album at the time, and every time he turned on the radio, that damn song would be on, and he'd have to remember that he didn't take it.
Yes, that's a Joe Walsh song, In the City, from the Warriors soundtrack. I used to cover it.
Yes, and it also was on The Long Run. They put it on The Long Run because they didn't have enough material.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read what's his name? Don Felder's book, Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles?
I have not read it, but I've heard
it's worth a read.
I bet. I bet. Well, I recently have come up on YouTube, at least in my feed, it's like some 70s Eagles live concert footage, but it's all Joe Walsh solo tunes. Yeah. Or, stuff like that, or James Gang or something like they're doing Rocky Mountain Way, but it's the Eagles. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? And you see the talk box tube there on the mic. I'm like, oh, Don Henley must have loved that. Joe going off on a talk box for 20 minutes.
Just before Joe joined the Eagles, Don Felder did a tour with him, a Joe Walsh tour.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing stuff that was happening on that. There's some stuff up on YouTube that shows that. Just crazy good. It makes you really respect how good of a guitar player Don Felder is.
Yeah. Ronnie says Uncle Larry toured with Joe Walsh. Yes, he took over Waddy Wachell's role when Waddy was going back out with Stevie Nicks. Which is kind of odd. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go. I can't do this tour, Joe. I'm going to go do a tour with your ex-girlfriend. Oh, okay.
And didn't Uncle Lair have to turn down something else in order to make that happen? He was already booked too.
Yeah. And then when the funny part he said was he learned like all the album parts note for note. And as soon as he showed up, Joe was like, what are you doing? Waddy just improv'd everything. He didn't play anything from the album.
Waddy Wachtel's another interesting story. Do you know he was next door neighbors with Leslie West?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he taught Leslie West how to play.
Wow. He was booked with Vince Gill. Interesting how that kind of comes around.
Yeah, and Vince told him, well, hell, you got to take that opportunity.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
sometimes you get musical opportunities you just have to take, and it's like, sorry, man. Give somebody else an opportunity. Somebody else got to play with Vince Gill, probably for the gig of their life.
Yep. Yeah, Vince has had a lot of great players with him over the years too.
Yeah.
Billy just says cocaine ruined so many 70s bands. Ruined a lot of 80s bands too, Billy. Yeah. Because those 70s bands that broke up, they all went that's a Water Buffalo meeting thing. Like, right, BC Rich? That's a Water Buffalo topic. Yeah. So
we're all old enough to have seen all those bands back when they were important.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Music was different.
We're going to wrap things up here, folks, because someone's got an early day tomorrow, and I play chauffeur to my sister tomorrow. She's giving blood. If you can, give some blood, folks. If you can't, I get it. So,
what do you mean?
They took my kidney? We will do another one of these for sure. Yeah, Billy, look what happened to Fleetwood. Fleetwood Mac did all the cocaine, basically. All of it. So, yeah, I get it.
Everybody did in LA back then. If you read Don Felder's book, cocaine was everywhere.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't David Bowie have to leave LA because he had such a bad cocaine problem? He had to go to Europe to get away from it.
Yeah, he ended up going to Berlin, the heroin capital of the world at the time. Perfect. Yeah, he and Iggy Pop. He took Iggy over to co-write the album or something like that.
Yeah.
I think
Iggy liked the heroin a lot more than.
Yeah, so let's go to Berlin. Perfect.
Yep. Yeah, made some good albums.
Yeah. So I'll be back tomorrow night with Canucks with Guitars with Trev and Terry doing live Q&A, and I'll be playing some tunes, taking requests, the virtual jukebox if it will, and a bunch of demos coming out this week. We got a soda pop tasting. We got an unboxing this week. Well, I got to shoot the unboxing still. That's what I forgot to do. And then, and Jim will definitely be back for another one of these. These are always fun. And
didn't talk too
have
much.
A great night.
Okay.
So happy tone chasing, folks. Hold those doors open. Let my knees hurt in a heady in traffic because, mazel. And be good to each other. Happy tone chasing. And, of course,
and Fruitcake Tony. Get a hold of him. I'll get you that pick.
Yeah, Tony.